In 2015, two of the world's great holy men and exemplars of spiritual depth and wisdom met in Dharamsala, India. The Archbishop, the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, went to visit his dear friend, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, to celebrate the Dalai Lama's 80th birthday. And they spent a week together exploring the spiritual foundations for creating lives of meaning, contribution, and joy. They spoke about what they called the 8 pillars of joy, 4 qualities of mind, and 4 qualities of heart that they saw as foundational for living our lives more joyfully. The 4 qualities of mind that they described were perspective, humility, humor, and acceptance. And the 4 qualities of heart, forgiveness, gratitude, compassion, and generosity. Today we're going to look together at this last quality, this 8th pillar of joy, generosity, at how we can bring more of it into our own lives and into the world, and with it bring more joy as well. Why is generosity so essential to lives of joy? As Buddhist teacher Gavin Harrison wrote in his book, In the Lap of the Buddha, generosity boomerangs. A generous spirit infuses the mind with joy, purpose, strength, and happiness. And this itself is a taste of heaven. Or as the 13th century Sufi poet Hafiz wrote, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the entire sky. That light, that love given freely, limitlessly, boundlessly, and joyfully lights the entire sky. What is generosity? It grows out of our basic openness to the presence of love that is already within us, and to the flow of love through us. And so generosity is a fundamental orientation of our hearts and minds that expresses itself through giving. The Igbo people of Nigeria have a saying, it is always the heart that gives. The fingers just let go. And Pope John the 23rd told us, anyone with a heart full of love always has something to give. The heart of the practice of generosity, as well as its transformative power, lies in the fact that it asks us to cultivate the inner quality of letting go. And letting go is, in a sense, the heart, really, of all spiritual practice. we can understand the spiritual life itself as a process of letting go of everything that clouds, obscures, or distorts our true original nature, our inheritance and birthright as love itself. A Course in Miracles describes this process as a process of removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is our natural inheritance. So in a sense, the whole of the spiritual life is simply about removing the blocks in our minds and in our hearts to the remembering of who we really are, which is love itself. Two of the most powerful obstacles that obscure our remembering of our true nature are our belief that we are separate from our source, that we're separate from our true self, that we're separate from one another. The other is our belief in scarcity, particularly the belief that we are somehow lacking something essential for our well-being and happiness. The letting go that lies at the heart of generosity is both a letting go of and a letting go into. We let go of this faulty belief in separation. We let go of our identification with scarcity and lack. And we let go into the awareness of the abundance of love that is already present in every one of us at all times. As I said earlier, generosity expresses itself through the act of giving. And in Eastern teachings, we're told of three basic forms or expressions of giving. The first of these is material giving. That's probably the one we're most familiar with and think of most often, where we give of our material resources, whether that means taking the clothes that we no longer wear to a shelter that distributes clothes to the homeless, whether it means giving of our material resources to the places that we receive our spiritual food, as we do here on Sunday mornings, sharing of our material abundance with this community that nourishes and feeds us. In giving of our material resources, we can help to address and lessen and alleviate the suffering caused by so much inequality and injustice in our world. The second form of giving that the Buddhists teach us is our ability to give freedom from fear. We may not ever have thought about that being a gift that we can give to others. we can give freedom from fear. And how do we do that? First of all, we do it by living lives of integrity and honesty. We keep our word. We extend welcome and hospitality. We offer protection when protection is called for. We can offer emotional support and solace to people who are struggling or suffering. We can give our attention, our kindness, our care. All of these are ways of expressing the generosity of our hearts and our spirit that makes such a difference to those on the receiving end. So giving freedom from fear. The third way that we're taught is to give of our spiritual wisdom. You don't have to be a holy person. You don't have to be a spiritual teacher to share the wisdom and goodness that is already part of you. This can be as simple as smiling. Can be as simple as being kind. Of being an oasis of welcome and concern in a world that can sometimes seem so lacking in those things. There's a beautiful story that was shared on Facebook about a year or so ago by the author Elizabeth Gilbert about an ordinary person just like you, just like me, who offered this gift of spiritual wisdom to the people he encountered just in the normal course of his day. It's so beautifully written that I'm going to read it to you rather than simply tell it. Again, this is Elizabeth Gilbert, a story she called All the Way to the River. Some years ago, I was stuck on a Crosstown bus in New York City during rush hour. Those of you here in the room can probably relate to this very well. Traffic was barely moving. The bus was filled with cold, tired people who were deeply irritated with one another and with the world itself. Two men barked at each other about a shove that might or might not have been intentional. A pregnant woman got on, and nobody offered her a seat. Rage was in the air. No mercy would be found here. But as the bus approached 7th Avenue, the driver got on the intercom. "Folks," he said, "I know you have had a rough day and you're frustrated. I can't do anything about the weather or the traffic, but here is what I can do. As each one of you gets off the bus, I will reach out my hand to you. As you walk by, drop your troubles into my palm. Don't take your problems home to your families. Just leave them with me. My route goes right by the Hudson River. And when I drive by there later, I'll open the window and throw your troubles into the water. It was as if a spell had been lifted. Everyone burst out laughing. Faces gleamed with surprised delight. People who had been pretending for the past hour not to notice each other's existence were suddenly grinning at each other, like, is this guy serious? Oh, he was serious. At the next stop, just as he promised, the driver reached out his hand, palm up, and waited. One by one, all of the exiting commuters placed their hand just above his and mimed the gesture of dropping something into his palm. Some people laughed as they did this. Some teared up, but everyone did it. The driver repeated the same lovely ritual at the next stop too, and the next, all the way to the river. She continues, we live in a hard world, my friends. Sometimes it is extra difficult to be a human being. Sometimes you have a bad day. Sometimes you have a bad day that lasts for several years. You struggle and fail. You lose jobs, money, friends, faith, love. You witness horrible events unfolding in the news, and you become fearful and withdrawn. There are times when everything seems cloaked in darkness. You long for the light, but don't know where to find it. But what if you are the light? What if you are the very agent of illumination that a dark situation begs for? That's what this bus driver taught me, that anyone can be the light at any moment. This guy wasn't some big power player. He wasn't a spiritual leader. He wasn't some media-savvy influencer. He was a bus driver, one of society's most invisible workers. But he possessed real power, and he used it beautifully for our benefit. When life feels especially grim, or when I feel particularly powerless in the face of the world's troubles, I think of this man and ask myself, what can I do right now to be the light? Of course, I can't personally end all wars, or solve global warming, or transform vexing characters into entirely different people. I definitely can't control traffic. But I do have some influence on everyone I brush up against, even if we never speak or learn each other's names. She concludes, no matter who you are, or where you are, or how mundane or tough your situation may seem, I believe you can illuminate your world. I believe you can illuminate your world. In fact, I believe that it is the only way this world will ever be illuminated. One bright act of grace at a time, all the way to the river. And so perhaps this is the deepest and fullest expression and manifestation of generosity that we can express in our lives. To recognize and claim that we are the light, that we can be the light in a dark situation for the people we encounter day in and day out. And like the sun in Hafiz's poem, individually and collectively, we can light the whole sky and together light this world. And so this is our prayer today. May each of us open to the light of our own true nature, and one bright act of grace at a time bring joy to this precious world. Together let us say, Amen.